great. I figured out Facebook Live, so that's very good. All right, so thanks for coming. I think most people are going to be watching. I think we see a couple more people walking down the hall. So just wanted to introduce, this is Dr. Noreen, Con Mayberry, and hi, welcome in. She was born in New York City, and so we're going to forgive her for that, right? She got to Texas.
My home.
She got to Texas as soon as she could.
That's right.
We always say. So she actually has an undergraduate degree from Xavier. Hey, how are you? With a BS in biology and a master's in biology from Texas Southern University, and then she got her PhD in environmental toxicology at Texas Southern University. And she currently does a lot of things, almost everything involving the environment, and is a medical scientist, which is very exciting. She actually has a radio show. She can actually tell us what station and all the details, which would be great. But she's been on lots of local news stations. She's kind of the local, we call it the Tox Doc. And so whenever there's a question about something that's related to a toxin or toxicology, she's kind of the go-to person. And she's recently on the doctor, so that's actually quite cool as well, talking about mold. And so she is also the owner of NKM Environmental Health Sciences, provides consulting services for environmental health and remediation for developers, real estate, legal, and medical professionals. And so it's kind of neat, you know, sometimes a lot of things that are related in medicine, we know the environment is actually playing a huge role. And so instead of closing our eyes to it, sometimes, so we know, for example, mold in your home has lots of, you know, problems, lots of issues with lungs, etc. We've already obviously seen the links with asbestos and causing lung cancer, and lots of other environmental things leading to leukemia. So everything in your environment, you know, you can't really escape your environment, but we know those things play a role. So I'm going to let her come up because she's probably better to tell a little bit about herself. But I just want to touch base from being an oncologist, a little bit of some of the things that we know in the environment can lead to cancer. And so it's kind of amazing because these are things that are just hanging out in the environment that we're breathing in every day. So there's a reason you're not supposed to be breathing in the gas fumes while you're pumping gas in the car. Benzene is in it and can lead to cancer, it leads to leukemia. So if you actually go to the NIH, the National Cancer Institute has, you know, even a website devoted to cancer-causing substances in the environment, and it's actually a pretty good read. And some things you actually be surprised to know about. So I was going to tell you a few of them. Arsenic, and I think we've heard about arsenic a lot, but tobacco smoke, some heavy kind of use of it, contaminated water, and so most of the arsenic poisoning that we have is actually from contaminated water sources. So you don't really know that your water is contaminated with arsenic. But can lead to pretty much cancer of any organ system, bladder, skin, lung, GI, liver, kidney, or leukemia, which is the bone marrow system. So actually, that's pretty much almost every organ system that you can have. Asbestos, we've obviously known, they're obviously getting rid of all the asbestos in the environment for that reason. Mesothelioma and lung cancer are huge links to it. The benzene, so not only is it in your gasoline, it's in glue, cleaning products, paint strippers, and clear known link to leukemia and development of leukemia. Cadmium, batteries. So there's actually a reason that you're supposed to recycle your batteries and not just kind of chunk them into the trash can. But it's also found in fertilizers, batteries, pigments, plastics, tobacco, foods, and lung cancer. I will say, as we all know, tobacco is a huge risk factor for cancer, but sometimes it's because it has these chemicals in it as well as, you know, just being bad for you. Formaldehyde, we talked about this one a little bit because in med school, as I said, we kind of swam in formaldehyde when we were in gross anatomy class, but it's also in building materials, fungicides, germicides, disinfectants. Mentioned only because in med school, it was a med school question. PVC pipe, it turns out, can easily give you liver cancer in high doses. So there's people who actually work with PVC pipe, and so it's one of those things. Every time I saw a PVC pipe at a construction site, I'm like, huh, it's actually cancer causing, and that's PVC pipes and almost everything when it comes to a lot of building materials and stuff. So lots of things out there that we know can cause cancer, but a lot of the environmental and nutritional issues can actually lead to other diseases as well. And so without further ado, Dr. Noreen is going to come up, give some answers, and then maybe we can have a question and answer session. She can, because I have a lot of questions.
Absolutely.
So nothing else she can answer.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And, you know, this book, Talking Toxicology, I wrote this for the layperson because people don't understand how toxicology actually affects you on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. We're always interacting with chemicals. The easiest way to be exposed to potentially toxic chemicals is to take a breath. And we're never going to stop breathing as long as we're alive, so we're constantly exposing our body to a various, what I call a soup or sea of toxicity. Because, you know, we go into these buildings and we love for them to be all pretty and bright and new. We remodel, and when we remodel, you know, you get that smell, that scent. That new car smell that everybody loves, it's very, very dangerous for you. It is very toxic. It is full of formaldehyde. It is full of benzene. It is full of other volatile organic chemicals, because the formaldehyde is a preservative, but it helps that glue, that adhesive, you know, actually stick longer, and it off gases for a long period of time. So, you know, along with working, having my own consulting business, I've been a space toxicologist. I was recruited in 2004 by NASA, and so one thing that we know is that, you know, in order to make sure that the astronauts can stay up in space as long as possible, we have to control their air. So what we're breathing here on Earth would absolutely cause mission failure and for them to have to come home. And we're breathing it on a day-to-day basis. Well, why is it harming us? Well, because we have dilution. We can actually recycle the air through our HVAC system. We go outside, we open a window, we open a door. So we've got this dilution effect, which takes that really high concentration that would build up in the space station because you can't open a window, because you can't open a door, and because the air cleaning system is not as efficient as it is here on Earth. It is in a space vacuum. We have to make sure that any and everything that contains chemicals, that we have to assess to make sure that if those chemicals were to be released, like let's say from a pen or a marker that goes up into space, if it were to be released in that small environment, would it actually cause some really bad health effects? So formaldehyde, I'll go back to that again. Think about foam or any kind of adhesives. So we had an issue where one of the other space agencies sent up some foam that was off-gassing, and when they opened up the hatch and those chemicals went into the breathable airspace, the astronauts got sick. They had to close it up and they had to isolate themselves. Thankfully, you know, the space station is large enough to where they were able to do that. But think about that here on Earth. You know, who else can you think of that might have the nearest analogous environment? People who go under the sea in submarines. So there are submarine standards as well. And so what always worries me about people who live on subs is the amount of smoking that they do, okay? Because you just talked about tobacco smoke, but it's the combustion products and all of the other chemicals that are really the issue with smoking. They're really hazardous, and when you're breathing it in an airspace that's enclosed, you know, as the air quality gets worse and worse, you see other effects. Effects with your skin, effects with your lungs, effects with your cardiovascular system. A lot of us, we bring what I call toxic roommates in the home. So why did I write this? Because I wanted people to understand what toxicity is. Because again, someone could say, well, you know, we're breathing chemicals all the time. I feel fine. I feel okay. And I'm like, yeah, you're supposed to feel okay. You're supposed to feel fine. You're not supposed to immediately feel the effects of the chemicals. Well, why is that? Why should I worry about this then? Because it's the long-term effects. It's the long-term effects. So there are 4 steps in terms of toxicity. There's absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. So once your body's exposed to a chemical, be it through something you've eaten, because that's the second fastest route of being exposed to chemicals, is eating or drinking, because we have chemicals on practically everything we eat and practically everything we drink, if we're buying it from somewhere else and it's prepared. So when you're ingesting these chemicals, your body says, okay, well, I've got this great system. It's called my detoxification system. I've got a liver, I've got these kidneys, and they work to help detoxify these chemicals so they do not get to the site of toxic effect, okay? They don't get to their target organ site of toxicity. So, again, this is a really easy, if you buy this book, read the first 3 chapters, you'll know more about toxicity and what your potential chemical roommates are and how to reduce your exposure. I talked about dilution. There's a saying, the solution to pollution is dilution, because if it's diluted far enough down, you don't feel the effects. So again, we are at home, we want to keep our homes clean, we want them pretty and nice, but we bring in these products that can cause us to get sick. They can cause our children to get sick. They can cause our pets to get sick. And if we don't pay attention to the number of chemicals that we're bringing in and that we're breathing in constantly, the biggest issue with chemicals is people not using them as directed, okay? And using them too often, using way too much. Again, that all goes back to not using them as directed. They use really, really strong chemicals, and for the smallest little thing that you could use something as simple as maybe a white vinegar. You know, you were there when I was at Mommy Series. I always give people this real easy, you know, cleaning product. Go to the dollar store, get some white vinegar, okay? Put in some rinds from lemon, lime, citrus rinds. Let it sit there for 48 hours to 2 weeks. Let it kind of break down and dilute it. 1 part of that vinegar to 4 to 5 parts of water. Use that. It will clean practically everything. I always say save the big guns like your Clorox. I don't even believe in using ammonia at all, but save the Clorox for the really bad biological events. After a really big viral event or, you know, diarrhea event, you really want to make sure that you're getting everything out. But again, use it as directed. Protect your lungs. Make sure that you have that environment that you've cleaned and used the bleach in. You've opened up the windows. You use the fans. You really push those chemicals out of the environment because they will hang around. They will be recycled through your air quality system, your air HVAC system, and your air quality will increasingly get worse. I also recommend using, you know, an air purifier. Use a good high quality air purifier so that you're using technology to help take out what you have in the air. Smoke particles. A lot of people cook at really high heat in their homes. You don't even realize that when you sear meat or you sear fruit. You know, I watch some of these cooking shows and they say, you want those black marks? Look for those black marks. They're good for you. Those black marks, those are carcinogens, okay? So when you are eating those black marks, you're eating the carcinogens. I remember one time I was eating barbecue and another toxicologist said, I can't believe you're eating that, Noreen. You know that's carcinogenic. I said, look, I took off all the black stuff. And they're like, oh, okay. You know, but I mean, we want that, you know, we're taught that it's flavorful. You turn on the commercials. There's a commercial for these little, you know, bleach-containing wipes, and they're targeting you. They're targeting the mom with a little baby, and they're saying, you want your baby to be healthy, use these Clorox wipes, and they don't put on gloves, you know. You're not supposed to touch that. That breaks down your skin. You know, if we were talking about dermatological issues earlier. A lot of times no one uses gloves anymore. And on the commercials, they don't use gloves. They make it seem so commonplace and so safe. Here's another thing you don't think about when you have those chemicals at home. How do you store them? Are you storing them in something that stops those chemicals from actually getting into your air? You think because they're in a bottle that they're closed and they're not leaching out to your environment, but they're off-gassing as well. Let me give you an example. You go to a grocery store and you go down the aisle where you've got all of the heavily scented cleaning products, but not just that, the liquid detergent, those dryer sheets that you put in. You walk down that aisle, you can smell them. They're in the packages, but you can smell them as soon as you hit the aisle because there's so many of them. Well, the same thing is going on with those poorly sealed bottles that we have our cleaning products in. So what I tell people to do is if you have those cleaning products and you don't want to get rid of them, store them in a container that you can close and clamp down. Either a metal container or even a hard plastic container that clamps down, and you store them away from your breathable airspace. Put them in an area that doesn't get a lot of traffic in your home, because most of us put it right under the sink, in our bathrooms where we are all the time, or in our kitchen where we are all the time, okay? We worry about, you know, making sure the latch closes, but even if the latch on your cabinet doesn't open all the way, those chemicals still get out into your breathable airspace. You know, when we test carpet dust like this, we get a little piece of carpet dust, we look at it in a mass spec, we can see all of the chemicals that have been used in the air in the carpet dust. Along with that is us. We shed on average anywhere from 6 to 7 pounds of skin every year because it's our largest organ and we're constantly shedding. Every 2 weeks we get practically a whole new outer layer of skin. So as the dust is coming off of us, it's going into the air in small amounts that we can't see unless we put a special light on. You ever go in those blue light and you see all that stuff in the air? Oh, that's not just, you know, that's not just paper dust. That's a lot of people. So a lot of us, we're all mixing that. And then those lightweight chemicals, they adhere to it, then they fall down, and either we breathe them in, and our lung acts as a scrubber, or it goes into our carpet. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. What I am trying to let you understand is there's an awareness of how we interact with toxicity. This is what we do. So again, if you're lowering the amount of those chemicals in your home, then you're reducing your overall exposure. In terms of toxicity, you can interact with the most toxic chemical in the world. If you're not going to absorb it, your body doesn't absorb it, if it isn't distributed to the site of toxicity, if it just takes a ride in and goes out, it's not toxic to you. It has no toxic effect. Remember, there are 4 stages: absorption, distribution, so your body absorbs it, and then either your liver will turn it into something that's non-toxic and get rid of it immediately, which is metabolism and excretion, get it out of your body in your waste products, or it can turn it into something that's even more toxic. Those are the really bad chemicals, like the benzenes, like the formaldehydes. And when your liver gets overloaded, what the body does is create excess fat cells. So this little pooch here that especially us girls, we don't like, what us toxicologists, we call it the liver belt, because it means your liver has slowed down in efficiency, and now you're actually creating more fat cells to store these volatile chemicals, because a lot of them dissolve in fat. So that's your body's protective way to say, okay, well, I can't detoxify this now, so I'm just going to store you in this, fat cell until I can get to you. And then if we never do anything to help support our liver health, and our liver stays inefficient, it gets lower and lower in efficiency, then we create more fat cells. That's why sometimes when I talk to people who are trainers and they say, well, I have clients and they start losing weight and then all of a sudden they get very sick, and I don't understand why. I said, well, because the chemicals that were previously stored in those fat cells, they've started to burn them, and now they're getting into systemic circulation. So that's something you really have to pay attention to nutrition when you start to exercise. Some people who exercise a lot, they are more susceptible to when they are interacting with high chemical exposures, because they don't have a lot of protective fat cells because they're super fit. So there's kind of a, do I say don't exercise? Absolutely not. I think exercise is the absolute best thing in the world, but then I go back to nutrition. And that is why I did create the liver and kidney health supplement, which is plant-based. What I did was I looked at everything in nutritional toxicology that actually helped the liver become more efficient and help the kidneys become more efficient. And so I love my colleagues in nutritional toxicity, because I go to universities and I give this speech and they're like, oh my God, we can't wait to give you more. This is perfect. You're the end user of what we are researching. Because a lot of times as researchers, and I've been there too, the ultimate goal is to publish in a peer-reviewed journal. The average person's not reading a peer-reviewed journal. The average person developing products is not using a peer-reviewed journal, which is why you have a lot of weird products out there that have really odd ingredients that once people start taking them, all of a sudden they get sick. So again, that's why it's really important to pay attention not only to, the health products, but also the junk stuff too. What's interesting to me is I'll have a person ask me 10 or 15 questions about my product, which is great. I love that. But at the same time, they'll go and they'll eat a really fatty food or something processed that comes in a plastic wrapper, the latest deep fried thing, and they won't ask any questions about those chemicals. They don't ask one question. Oh, deep fried cake thing, I'm eating it. No one asks. How come you ask so many questions about what's supposedly good for you, but you don't ask so many questions about what's bad for you? I don't know. I'm not asking you. I think it's a rhetorical question. I'm not asking you guys to answer. I think it might be guilt. But at the same time, we really should pay more attention and ask more questions about what we're giving our kids on a day-to-day basis. My daughter, she's always like, okay, when we go grocery shopping, she's just like, all right, well, I'm going to have to stand here because my mom's going to be reading everything on the box and saying, yes, no, 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 no. Almost everything she brings to me, my friends are eating this at school. No. Put it away. So there's a lot of things you can do that take a little bit more time in terms of planning, but they can easily reduce your overall exposure to chemicals in the long term. And that's why it's worth the investment. because with toxicity, it's about the dose, it's about the time of exposure, and it's about, which is the duration. And so again, if you're eating chemicals every single day, if you're breathing chemicals every single day, and you're not doing anything to lower that overall exposure, then again, you're gonna have that long-term chronic toxicity, which leads to, chronic disease, which leads to, God, I can't even name the number of cancers that we know are from environmental factors. There are new cancers that people are discovering, every few years. And we have specialists here in Houston, oncology specialists here in Houston, that specialize in a cancer that nobody else specializes in the world. Because we have a really big mix of chemicals from here, around here, that are coming from the winds from Mexico, come in from other countries. And so we're not gonna get rid of it. We're not gonna live our lives like we're scared, but we are gonna do things and take steps to make sure that we reduce our overall exposures. So that's my general, what is toxicity and why does toxicity matter to you in a nutshell. And I know I don't have a lot of time, so I definitely wanted to open it up for questions.
All right, well, I have a question.
Yes.
What about, you talked a little bit about molds.
Yes.
And mold exposures. 'Cause
Right.
Molds has a lot of health side effects.
Absolutely.
And so what are things that we can do to at least minimize our mold
Right.
exposure? Or if we have it, do we need to test for it? Like if we're having lots of chronic medical conditions, bad skin issues,
Sure.
lung issues, whatever it is,
Sure.
horrible chronic cough, everyone in the house keeps getting sick. And knowing that we live in a place called the Bayou City,
Yes.
in
What
New
can we
Orleans
do?
it was a huge problem, and so what can we do to minimize it? I mean, obviously,
Right.
other than trying to seal any leak.
So molds are ubiquitous, meaning they're everywhere. We're breathing them at low levels now, and they're harmless at low levels. It's when they get to a higher concentration. Remember I talked about the dosage. So the higher the concentration, the higher the dosage. When they get to a higher concentration, they release mycotoxins, which are mold-related toxins. Those are the really, really bad actors that can make you sick. They can affect your cardiovascular system. They can affect your brain. They can affect your skin. They can affect pretty much systemically anything you can think of, molds can affect. But again, it is about making sure that not only you're making sure that those leaks are taken care of quickly, but if you have sheetrock on the wall, which practically everyone has in their house, know that sheetrock is like candy for mold. So if the sheetrock gets wet, and even if you don't see the visual contamination, if you caught it right away, you still need to cut out not only the area that was wet, but at least 1.5 feet past that. Because again, we're breathing mold right now, it's in the air, we can't see it, it's invisible. So when it gets to the point of visual contamination, that's when it's really high. But again, there's more past that area that is not visible that can still be there. So remediating properly, testing your air quality, making sure that you do have a really good HVAC system, that it gets inspected annually, that you change your filters, you get the highest efficiency filters that you possibly can. And then I always, again, couple that with an air purifier as well, to pull what's out of my air. Because that's what you have to do. You have to reduce what's in the air so that it doesn't build up to a really high concentration. Because again, at low concentrations, we're breathing it constantly, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But at high concentrations, it can be fatal. And we've seen a lot of cases of the black mold, which is Stachybotrys. And so again, that one is the quote-unquote killer mold, because there have been fatalities when you're breathing Stachybotrys for a long time. But I've seen a lot of kids, a lot of adults develop asthma, develop skin issues from being exposed to high levels of mold. If you enter like an office space or your home and you start to feel bad every time you're in that space, and when you leave that space, some of the symptoms start to resolve, then you know you've got an area of bad environmental contamination. You're in an environment that's bad. I always tell people, every time you enter a new space, you enter a space with a different chemical mixture. When you go into someone's car, you're breathing a different chemical mixture. When you enter someone's home, you're breathing a different chemical mixture, and you don't know how efficient or inefficient their air purification or HVAC system is. So those are things just to keep in mind. So definitely, that's what you can do at home to make sure that you don't get really high contamination from mold. Anything else?
what would you use to clean it?
To clean mold.
Yes. So for instance, like
Okay.
the front load versus top loading washers. So I've heard sometimes there's some on the front loading. On the
That
rim
little
around.
rim around there,
Yes.
you have to replace it.
Okay.
Okay, because the only thing that will really kill that is bleach.
So it was
But I'm
yesterday.
Yeah, I had that. I had that happen to me, and all of a sudden, you know, my towels started to smell like
Yeah.
fungi, and they were smelling great. And I was like, wait a minute, these smell like mold. What's wrong? And I realized it was that ring. They will send you, call the company if you have that. Call the company where you bought that from, or actually the manufacturer. Like if it's a Maytag, call Maytag. Say I've got this ring. It's got mold. What can I buy? They'll tell you which product removes it, but if it doesn't remove it, normally they will send you a ring free of charge.
Excellent.
Yeah, because I had that. I had a top loading, front loading that did that. Yes.
Along those lines, I know. So I'm like kind of super in on that kind of stuff already, but I found that with I do get a top loader for that reason. That's one of the reasons I insisted on it, but also using soap detergent that doesn't have fats in it. Seems to reduce I don't get any stink, even if I leave it in there,
Right.
like forget about my laundry, it doesn't have that stinky smell, and I don't get soap scum or
Right.
or anything
You
like that.
use the more natural.
Yeah.
detergents,
And it's,
yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have because I've made soap. I make soap as well, but I don't make laundry soap because it uses fats, and then things get sticky and moldy and gross.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well,
if
I
that's
mean,
something-
because the mold adheres to it.
yeah,
That
okay.
it adheres to it, and that's why it's there. It leaves kind of a slime, and
Yeah.
then that's like another oh good, the slime is like a moisture. Moles seek out moisture, so that residue is an area of moisture, so it's drawn to it because it's in the air, and it starts to grow. So it's very easy for mold to go from low concentrations to high concentrations if you have an area of moisture. And so that's why I'm like, don't wait when you have a leak. Do not wait don't wait if you have a leak, because if you do, then you've got a greater chance for a much higher contamination in several types of mold coming in and getting higher and higher in your breathable airspace.
Can you talk about foods and household cleaning supplies that we
Yeah.
should tend to avoid, just kind of as a general rule of
Right.
thumb, or
Goldfish.
I'll start with well, I'm
Just saying, it's not actually a food product.
So I will tell you this. I'm going to talk about this, as a matter of fact, Friday at noon on Fox. There's a new study showing that the emulsifiers, the thickening agents, which most people use, soy lecithin, that leads to a variety of chronic diseases. And pretty much anything you buy that's packaged is going to have some type of emulsifier in it. But it's not just the soy. It will have and it acts as a thickening agent, but then it's coupled with preservatives. So soy lecithin, I avoid it at all costs simply because it does not make me feel good. And I know when I have something, I'm like, okay, be prepared, Noreen. You're going to feel bad for about 15 to 20 minutes because I pay attention. And then I take this. I don't just, tell other people to take it. I take it every day because I got sick going to college and eating stuff that my mom didn't give me. My mom was all about fresh foods and not eating stuff with colors in it, and the other kids had Fruit Loops in it. I couldn't have that kind of stuff. I could only have granola and wheat germ and really just fresh stuff, and I was so frustrated as a kid. So as soon as I went to college, I'm going to try everything. Well, I got so sick trying everything because my body just wasn't used to it. So going back to the less processed foods is always the best thing possible. There are a lot of people I found someone who made the fruit roll-ups, but she made them from just chia seeds and strawberries. And I said, give me that recipe so I can put it on Dr. Noreen, because I want parents to know how easy it is to do. It was just amazing how easy it was to make homemade fruit roll-up snacks that were super healthy for kids. So you have to, because we're in this age of technology, there are a lot of really good things we can do, but I will tell you this, do not eat from a can. Do not eat from a can. That is lined with bisphenol A, which is terrible for you. So again, I'm talking about watching some of these cooking shows, even seeing some people who are trying to advise others about clean eating. They're like, I'm eating clean, and then I look and they've got canned stuff there, and I'm like, you're not eating clean. You're eating chemicals, and you're teaching others to eat chemicals. So anybody out there that's, espousing nutrition, and you're going to go to these government websites and they'll say eat canned vegetables. Do not eat canned vegetables. Nutritionists will tell you eat from cans. No, do not eat from cans. That is like please don't do that. Now, things that come in a mason jar, not as bad for you at all. So if you know someone that preserves like your favorite poblano peppers in a jar, it's fine, but it's not lined with the bisphenol A. But bisphenol A is in almost everything. Like if you go to the store and you get a receipt, it's got bisphenol A. I'm like, don't give me the receipt. I don't want to put more BPA in my purse. I mean, it's everywhere, so you want to reduce how much you eat. And there's quite a bit in the can so that when you open the can, everything comes out. That's why they line it with that. It gives it that slickness so no one's going, I got to scrape this stuff out of the can. Because people demanded that stuff come out of the cans more easy, that's why they're lined with BPA.
But you've just ruined Thanksgiving cranberry out of the can.
Yeah, I did. So here's my issue with that. Okay, so if you have to have cranberry out of a can, look online and see if you can find some in a jar, because I've seen them in jars. Okay, and then okay, fine. I'd be okay with you eating out of a can once a year or even twice a year, but most people who eat out of cans all the time. So again, it is about the dose. So again, once or twice, I'm not saying you can never have anything unhealthy. I'm just saying you really need to cut back that dosage. And some people say everything in moderation. I don't say everything in moderation, because some things you should have zero, like trans fats, okay? No margarine. Don't eat margarine, people. That's trans fats. There is zero amount of trans fats that is healthy for your body. The World Health Organization has declared that last year, and they're sticking with it. So no trans fats, okay? No margarine. Margarine is the worst thing, and it's horrible. So, and people will use it every morning, and it's not in a can. But I can't believe it's not. It's not, because it isn't. So don't eat it. So let me think.
We're not emotionally ready to get rid of the bacon.
I got you. I understand, but nitrate-free bacon. Nitrate-free bacon. I don't eat pork. But I get nitrate-free turkey bacon or the beef bacon. So because for years I didn't have bacon because we didn't eat pork. So
and I will add xylitol, sorbitol,
yes,
maltitol,
artificial sugars.
Any of those things
are the enemy.
But they make a lot of people, myself included, feel terrible.
Yes, and they will have you running to the bathroom.
Yes.
Running, sprinting. In a really bad way.
It's in most chewing gums that are sugar-free.
It sure is. Anything that's sugar-free or diet, don't drink anything diet, okay? Diet, just if you have to have that Coke, go with the regular Coke. Now, I'm going to say, don't even have that because it has high fructose corn syrup. If they would go back to sugar,
Mexican Coke is okay.
If you get the Coke with sugar, the real sugar, instead of high fructose corn syrup, then you can drink it, but not the diet stuff. There are people who they won't even allow diet sugar to be in their airspace because they feel like it's contaminating the air. Very smart people too. I just won't say their names.
So my kids can't have sugar at all because of their beard and their body. But so I agree, alcohol will cause really awful diarrhea. We've been there and tried that with gumballs. It's bad. But erythritol, some drinks and different things, like every once in a while I'll let them have something. Tell me what's bad. Aside from the diarrhea.
Well, I mean, it's a chemical. It's a chemical, and a lot of times we don't know the long-term health effects. And that's the problem that we have with these chemical, man-made sugars. They're not natural. They're just not natural. If you're getting something natural like a stevia, that's okay. Sugar cane, organic coconut sugar I use, when I use sugar. I don't put sugar in my drinks because I want to save my sugar for when I want to have a cookie or something like that, something a little bit. And healthy doesn't always mean low fat, because if you're making cookies the old-fashioned way with the butter and all the good stuff and not the animal fats, it's still going to be fattening, but it's gonna be healthier than something you buy out of a bag. So that's another misconception. People think that if you're eating clean and you're eating healthy, you're supposed to be, you know, thin as a rail. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, I've seen a lot of really rich, you know, like raw vegan desserts that have this cashew base and all this great healthy stuff in it, but it's super high in calories. You eat one slice of that, you probably, you know, got 600-700 calories in it. I mean, so, you know, again, healthy does not necessarily mean low fat or low calorie.
Can you talk about this chemical gum? You see it in everything.
Xanthan gum.
Xanthan.
What is that?
So it's another emulsifier. So that's another one of those emulsifiers I just talked about. They're showing that these thickening agents are definitely, you know, causing chronic disease. Now, xanthan gum is supposed to be a little bit better for you. I'm not really convinced. I'm not really convinced that it's better than the soy lecithin, because again, when they looked at emulsifiers, which are again in practically everything, they cause, you know, they lead to the development of chronic disease. And this is really good research. You know, I'm not talking about just fly-by-night laboratories or laboratories that are funded by special interests, but I mean, it's really good research showing this. So.
And then for like kids, I mean, I think the problem is, especially with media exposure and everything else, I mean, you're right, they really just want to eat the fruit roll up. They want to have a lot of packaged stuff, the Lunchable.
Yes. The processed meat with the nitrates, terrible for you. Really bad. A lot of people have shown that leads to more behavioral disorders. The nitrates. They're really, really bad for you. Nitrites and nitrates that are in those. So you've got to have the fresh, preservative-free stuff. You know, the good thing about Pinterest is that you can learn to make healthy hacks of, you know, what you're finding in Lunchables. So again, it takes the planning, it takes time, and you really need to make sure that that hack isn't sponsored by a certain company that wants you to buy their cheese, because then you'll see that name, that label on there. Make sure that it truly is a healthy alternative, you know, meaning the least processed possible.
You talked a little bit about vinegar, white vinegar
Yes.
earlier. I think white vinegar is like a miracle.
It
I mean,
is.
It gets off the soap scum.
Absolutely.
On the shower door.
Yes.
It gets off everything.
It gets off baked on, you know, that baked on crust from the bottom of the oven when you bake an apple pie. You know, and all I do for that is you can mix it with a little bit of baking soda, or you just do 3 parts water to 1 part of the vinegar and just spray it on and leave it for hours. It's much healthier than turning on that self-cleaning option too.
So what are the actual antibacterial properties within white vinegar? I mean, are you getting the same level of clean from white vinegar that you would from your favorite Clorox spray?
Okay, you're not getting the same level as Clorox, but again, my point is you don't need that Clorox level of clean for most issues, okay? Now, if it's removing the actual scum, then yes, you're getting a really good, you're physically removing it so it's not there anymore. But when it comes to a biohazard, Clorox is much stronger. It is much stronger, so it's gonna give you that hospital level clean, but it's also gonna off-gas, and it's gonna leave chemicals in your environment. Whereas the vinegar will physically remove it, but it may not necessarily get all of the viral germs. I always say that a good alternative is good old steam. They have these little steam cleaning products. You use heat, you put enough heat on something, it's gonna kill anything biological, okay? So that's a really great alternative. Some people try to get you to add chemicals to that steam. If you're gonna add anything, I'd add the vinegar. And then you can get that really clean, that true clean, and you don't have to pull out the Clorox for.
Are there
bleach.
concerns with antibacterial soap? Because I use it at home. I asked my daycare why we don't have it at school, and they said CDC came in, I guess, or somebody came in.
Triclosan, really bad for you. It actually increases your resistance to medications that will get rid of viruses and superbugs. So it makes you more susceptible to getting sicker when you are exposed to something in the environment that, like a virus, that could generally, you might need to take a medication for to get rid of. It might take the average person 2 to 3 days to feel better. On a 7-day run, you might have to go on 2 separate runs of antibiotics because it's not working the first time. So that's why triclosan is not good.
Dangerous.
And it's in tooth cases.
Is it dangerous for him?
It is. I would get rid of that immediately. I never trusted it. I never trusted anything antibacterial even before that came out, because I was like, it's increasing the resistance. I had seen some research years and years ago. I was like, it's increasing our resistance, so why would I use this? I'm not using this anymore. I thought it was the best thing in the world when it first came out until I saw that research, and I said, no way.
Is it the same concern with Purell and wet ones? And
So Purell generally has, isopropyl alcohol, IPA, which is not really that bad for you at low amounts. So it's not as bad, but now they're adding moisturizers in it, so that your skin doesn't dry out from the alcohol.
Right.
I don't really know. But again, soap, plain soap is good, not the antibacterial. You just need to wash longer. You need to wash longer. A lot of us do this and walk out of the bathroom. I'm going, ladies, get back in here. We teach our kids the alphabet song. I mean, we really need to wash more. We need to wash under the fingernail beds. A lot of people don't pay attention to the nail beds, and that's where a lot of the contamination really lingers, is under these nail beds. So
we're probably even overusing Bactroban, which is a topical, strong antibacterial agent to cover MRSA, which is methicillin-resistant Staph aureus. But the problem is that we used to not really have resistance, to it, and it was fine. But what happened was, with the overuse of it, now we're having a lot more resistance to it. And then, so the problem is, then, we have to go to oral antibiotics or stronger antibiotics. But eventually, when you have enough resistance, you don't actually have an antibiotic that works.
Exactly.
And those are when we get the real superbugs, and then we're probably in trouble. So I remember back in the day when, if someone had MRSA, it was a huge alert on the computer screen, and you had to put a sign on the door, and it's just all this sort of stuff. And now it's just so common, MRSA. We swab people all the time for things, and they're MRSA positive, or even babies born in the NICU get swabbed for MRSA, and every now and then some of them are positive. Right. And you're kind of, it's remarkable, because they were just born. Yeah. But with vanc-resistant enterococcus, that's a very scary bacteria, enterococcus. And if you get vanc-resistant, then they're having to use really strong, antibiotics. And so this bacterial resistance thing is a big issue.
It is a huge issue.
Part of it starts with the overuse of, sometimes it has a role or place, but it's kind of limiting it to when you really, really need it.
I'm having I'm drawing a blank, but there was an enterococcus that just killed, did you get the alert? I think 5 people last week. It's very rare, but it's starting to show up here in the States. And CDC put out the warning, and so I put the health alert on my Dr. Noreen page, because I like to post those when I get them. I'll tell you where it is when I look it up. You guys online, follow me at Dr. Noreen. It's just Dr. Noreen. And again, that's why I turn to food to help my body work better. Again, you shouldn't take medications unless you're exposed to something like a virus, or number one, you have a genetic defect that causes you to have some type of disease, and so now you have to be on a course of medication in order to correct that. Or you develop chronic disease later on, and generally we develop chronic disease due to an environmental factor combined with nutritional factors. Or, you shouldn't be taking medication unless you've had an accident. Let's say you've had surgery. You got to take pain meds then. So we shouldn't have to take medication as much as we do, but a lot of times we have to, again, going back to the fact that there are a lot of environmental and nutritional factors, that some of which we can control, some of which we can't control. So what we can control, what we can reduce, that's what we take care of. And we just live our lives as best we can. I'm going to find this.
So while you look for that, a different topic, but I get asked this question a lot.
Yes.
And it's, I live next to the Pasadena power plant, or next to the chemical plant, or or the power lines.
Right.
And so what is your opinion of the proximity, and another big one I get asked all the time, and sometimes I get a random.
Sorry, it was a yeast, Candida auris.
Oh yeah, I did hear about Candida.
Okay, yeah.
Candida's a huge problem.
Yes.
But it arrives from overuse of antibiotics, and you get overgrowth of Candida.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
And the other one is when they come with the mosquito spray.
Sure.
In your neighborhood.
Absolutely.
So
I hate those.
Every time they come, I get this slew of people calling me saying, "I said, I'm scared," you know, and is it
Right.
harmful? Is it not harmful? Do we keep the door shut?
There's a big debate on that,
Mhm.
and in Florida, because they were worried about, you know, Zika, they were spraying more, and a lot of researchers are saying, look, this stuff is horrible for you. Just like the Zika is bad for you, the stuff we're spraying is horrible for you. It is not healthy for you. And so when you see them coming, you should go indoors. You shouldn't open windows. You should not open your doors. Unfortunately, it will come through our HVAC system, and that's why you have to have, you know, like I said, a really good HVAC system, and you have to make sure that it's inspected annually. And if you're living in a really old house, our ductwork is lined with a very porous material, like a cloth-like material, so you can get a build-up of mold and chemicals in there, and you're not necessarily seeing it, but you're feeling bad. You know, that's why sometimes you enter a place and it's, well, there's no visual contamination, it looks fine, but I don't feel good every time I'm in here. Has to do with the ductwork. So after a couple of decades in your home, I say get new ductwork. Less if you've had a really bad water event, okay? Because you need to look inside that ductwork, because that will tell you a lot.
Can you talk a little bit more about air filters?
Okay, but this will be my last question, because unfortunately I have 2 more events to go to. But yes, air filters. I think that, you know, for me, I use the highest efficiency air filters that I can possibly find. The accordion air filters that have the highest rated HEPA. So there's a number of products out there. I mean, you know, so I don't just recommend one. You know, 3M if you want, just send me an email and I'll tell you which ones that I order. Because I used to have a link to one that was really good on my website. It may still be there under recommended products, but I order from them.
And do you have a machine that you recommend? Is it a HEPA or?
So the air purifier that I recommend is by Rolenta. It's called the Intense Pure Air, and it has 4 different filters in it, and it's the only one that removes formaldehyde. And because I'm also broadcasting online, full disclosure, I used to be their medical brand ambassador for the United States. But I did that because I believe in it. I use it, okay? And so, again, formaldehyde being everywhere, you want that. But thank you guys so
All right,
much.
yes, thank you for coming, and hopefully she answered a lot of your questions. I know I always have questions about all sorts of toxic things, but I get asked all the time, and I think people are always getting concerns about what's in the air, or what they're being injected with, or and is it causing some sort of health problem for them.
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming. Real quick though, can you come back and tell us, where do we find you? I know you have a talk show on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
So real quick, tell us, and I always see you on Fox.
Yeah, so generally I'm on Fox every Friday at noon, lunch with the Talks Doc, if I'm in town. So if I'm not there, that means I'm not in town. I do, what's that new show? Houston Live. Every once in a while I'll do that show, Great Day Houston, you'll see me on there. But you can find me at drnoreen.com. Doctor is spelled out, Noreen, and you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and then I'm on Facebook, just at Dr. Noreen, DrNoreen. And just, you know, I do consult. I work with all types of professionals, from real estate to medical professionals. I have this product, I have my books online, free shipping, because I believe in just getting it out there. But Dr. Nasser also offers the liver and kidney detox support here in her office, so you don't have to come to me. When you come in, you can just buy it from her. So.
And then radio show is
My
when?
radio
Saturday?
show is Saturday mornings from 9 to 9:30 on CBS 650. I'm actually not going to be on for the rest of this month, but I will be back in December. It's on Cleverly's show. Cleverly has a food show, and my Talk Stock radio show takes the first half hour of it, because I talk about various issues like this. And so I live stream it. If you go to my page right now on Facebook, it's just Dr. Noreen, not Noreen Con Mayberry, because that's my space page, but just Dr. Noreen. You can actually pull up some of the old live streams. I keep them on there, and I'm actually updating my Talk Stock Radio website so that I can do the live streams of various topics. So.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for all for watching, and thanks. We appreciate it. Very good.
Thank you.